Okay, so I'm not going to talk about marriage, not because I don't love my marriage, because I really do. This is just, hang on, let me turn this back on. But because I feel like God is calling me to talk about something. Oh, sorry guys, this is going really wrong. I feel like God's really calling me to talk about something even bigger. And Paul, when he wrote this, wasn't married. And so, yes, of course, it does link to families and marriage, but it's also something bigger. And he mentions a lot about the church and our relationship with Christ and he with us. So, if you're not married, don't panic, because we're not going to talk about that. I don't know how my laptop is completely switched off. It really is. It's up. No, I've got it. Okay, thanks. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hold it like, there we go. And now it can't break on me, I hope. So, breathe. As of September, so those who don't know me, I work at a wonderful school in Bath. And as of September, I was offered the role as pastoral lead for the year 5 to 8 girls. And if you ever question if God has a sense of humour, just please trust me when I tell you that this is a great punchline to the joke that was my teenage years. She is laughing a lot at the fact that this is my job. And I'll explain why in a minute. I really did have a vision when I was offered this job, and it was really God-given. I really had a vision that this job would be girls like running to my room and telling me all their insecurities, and I'd do this like really like profound monologue with so much wisdom just pouring from me, and they would just be so transformed and changed, and I would just leave at the end of the day and go, I did good. But that's not what it looks like, right, at all. And for those in this room, and I know there's a few of you with children and teenagers, you will also be laughing along, because you know that this is not the reality of working with ages 9 to 13. And it's not just the girls I work with, it's the boys as well. So I spend the majority of my days, just to give you some context for this, and I promise this links to the passage, so just bear with me. I spend the majority of my days walking alongside the awkward, messy, clunky, emotional, and broken parts of young people. Rarely are my conversations breakthrough moments. In fact, I spend my days thinking, gosh, this is exactly what my mum would say to me, which is a scary moment. And then I hear my 14-year-old self mocking me in my head. What's that noise? It sounds like, oh, it's a heater. I was like, oh, someone's playing some background music. God. Yes, so I walk through the corridors, reminding the girls every day to tie their hair up. That's really fun. To take their bright pink lip gloss off. During lessons, I confiscate things, which I really didn't think I'd be that person, but here I am. And I regularly say this term, stop fanning the flames of gossip, girls, every chance I get. So that is my job. However, the reason I'm mentioning this tonight is because there was one really powerful moment in my job. It was very recent, and it stayed with me for quite some time. And when I reread this passage, this moment in my office just came to my head. And I really believe it links to this. So, there was a 13-year-old girl in my office recently, and there were some really difficult dynamics between her and another girl, some unkindness, some power dynamics, and she was quite distressed when we had this really uncomfortable quite humbling conversation. And it was me and the deputy head and her. And she said this to me. She said, in her distress and her tears, "Miss, I don't know why you're trying to tell me I'm not a kind person." Just to clarify, I wasn't saying that to her at all, but obviously that was a trigger for her. I'm a really kind person. I'm kind to my friends. I'm kind to you. I'm kind to the teachers. I'm a kind person, right? My response to her in that moment was, "But is it kindness if it doesn't cost you?" Well, it's easy to be kind, yeah. But surely true kindness has to cost us. And I really shocked myself with that quote. And I went home that night and thought, gosh, do things really cost me? So in that moment, I saw something change in her. And as the weeks have gone on, she has started doing things that really cost her. And she gives me a look to say, you know and I know that this is costing me. She is now leading the younger years in some incredible creative projects at the school. She's making sure that the most vulnerable girls are being looked after in the changing rooms. She's keeping her thoughts to herself, and it could be very easy for her to share them. And day by day, little by little, it's costing her, but no one else knows. Her friends don't know that, but I do. So, this is making me really think about what sacrifice looks like for us. Even in a 13-year-old girl, God can move and speak. And he has really challenged my heart in this. It isn't always loud and dramatic, attention-seeking, or history book-worthy. It's in the quiet, mundane, day-to-day choices. So, Paul may not have had my pastoral lead role in his mind when he wrote this passage. In fact, Paul was currently in prison when he wrote Ephesians, and likely using every last bit of strength to find and the hope he could possibly try and find when he was sat in chains and treated horrifically. What I always forget about Paul is that just because he is writing such profound and God-breathed words, that does not mean that he is always feeling profound and God-filled. So just because he's saying those words, that doesn't mean he's always feeling it. And I think it's really easy for us to kind of look back on history and be like, yes, he must have just been so holy all the time. But I can't imagine he always felt that way. And I think actually it cost him to write those words in Ephesians whilst he was in the depth of despair. I wonder if the Ephesians church that he loved very dearly and was writing to would have related as much to Paul if he wasn't quite literally practicing what he preached regarding sacrifice and surrender. It does make you think, doesn't it? I wonder, actually, the fact that he was in prison writing these words, it must really make them go, gosh, we really got to take this seriously. Because he's really living this, and we need to as well. So, linking this to you, I'm sure this week you haven't always felt profound and God-filled. Is that fair to say? When you've watched the news, when you've maybe spoken to a family member with some complicated issues, you stacked a dishwasher, you've waited in the endless temporary traffic lights in Bath, that's my life this week, yeah, or spent another day looking at a grey, miserable sky. As I said to this 13-year-old girl recently, is it really kind if it doesn't cost you? So, my talk tonight is going to be looking at the boring, unglamorous, beige, and frustrating parts of life, and what it really means to sacrifice, and the moments where it costs us. So, to bring you back to another part of my job, I really like my job, can you not tell? One thing that's been really cool is that I have been training to be a life coach, which is another really odd angle that God has taken me, like a path he's taken me down that I didn't really know anything about, and I've just fallen in love with it. And I could talk about it for hours if you ever want to come and talk to me about it, because it is just incredible what coaching does. And I've had the privilege of creating my own coaching curriculum. So I set up my own elective for year 7 to 8, and God just kind of quite literally said to my boss that it was what he wanted me to do, and I didn't know anything about it, and I was like, okay. And so I've created this curriculum for the year 7 and 8, and it's all about connecting with our inner selves in order to connect with others. And it's very kingdom-minded and kingdom thinking without the kids knowing it. And I went on a training course a few weeks ago at the start of the year, and the facilitator asked us a series of questions. And there was these big pair of glasses on each of our, vision glasses on our booklets. And she asked us to imagine these different pairs of glasses in front of us and which ones we're going to be putting on for each scenario she reads out to us. So I'm going to do that for you tonight. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'm just going to warn you now, there's a real challenge in these questions. And I suppose it's just a reassurance to tell you that there's no shame in this, there's no condemnation, there's no judgment. This is just for you and God in your own heart and mind now, in this quiet moment. But I'm going to ask you about some areas in your life that God has put you in, whether you believe that or not. And I want to ask you what lenses you are wearing. Now, just to give you some context to this, I don't wear glasses myself, but Rachel, lovely Rachel here, who is a very important, wonderful person in my life, she does wear glasses. And Rachel got some new glasses a while back, and they were really different. They're the ones she's currently wearing, but they're very different to the ones she had, okay? And these new glasses were very bold and brilliant. And I remember when she tried them on for me, I just was like, gosh, your whole face looks different. Everything about you just looks different by wearing these glasses. And you can imagine my frustration for all her wonderful, incredible skills and strengths. Rachel wasn't brave enough to wear them for a while. And I was like, come on, you look great in them. What are you doing? Wear them. And I quote, this is her quote of yours, they just feel really different and new. And sure enough, Rachel got over herself and started wearing them. And now none of you would even know that she's got these wonderful new glasses on, because they're part of you now, right? And there's a real picture in this. Rachel and I were talking about it over coffee yesterday, about Rachel needed a new prescription. She needed a new vision. The old glasses weren't quite cutting it for her, and now she needed these new ones. And so with that imagery in mind, I'm going to ask you some questions now. Now, it's up to you what you want to do. You can either close your eyes or look in the distance or whatever. I just need you to connect now with some honest truths in your own life. I want you to picture yourself wearing some glasses, and I want you to really see what it is that your lenses are showing you. I'm going to read a list of the core foundational places and roles that God has given you. So first, if you're ready, we're going to start with your work. Now, I appreciate there are people here who aren't necessarily employed, but that does not mean that you don't have daily work and tasks and errands to complete. So picture your job, your work, your school. How does it feel when you wake up in the morning for your job? for your daily tasks. I want you to be honest with yourself. Is it annoying? Is it time-consuming? Is it quite dull, boring, stressful, anxiety-provoking, life-giving? Okay, let's move on now to your home. When you step in the door, maybe it's to a partner, to children, to a roommate, to a pet, how does it feel? Is it a lonely place? Is it completely chaotic? Does it feel peaceful? Or is it a reminder of the things you've not done that day? How does it feel when you walk in that front door? And now I'm going to ask you about your faith and your relationship with God. Really secretly and privately, in the quietness of your mind now, you're allowed to be honest about this. Is it confusing, your faith? Is it fun? Is it intimate? Is it scary? Is it frustrating? Is it anxiety-provoking? Does God feel like a strict leader and ruler? Does he feel like a friend that you can promise you'll meet up for a coffee with soon, but then you forget to put a date in the diary? Is he quite annoying in your head? Is he nagging? What's it like with God? And it's all right, you can be honest with yourself. Okay, now we're going to think about your family. And I'm not just talking about who you're married to, although yes, of course, that does come into this. If you're married to somebody, I'm talking about your wider family too, your siblings, and maybe their partners, your nieces, your nephews, your children, your grandchildren, parents, cousins. Just picture them in your head. Do you judge them? Do you really long to connect with them? Are they estranged from you? Do you miss them? Are they annoying? Do they fill you with shame or peace or acceptance or love? Okay, now this is the big one, I'd argue maybe the most challenging one, and I felt a little bit reluctant to type this, but I did really feel God put this on my mind. But I want you to now think about the world around you. Do you deep down think that the class system is necessary? That poverty is a choice? That Trump is evil, or that Joe Rogan is a great example of a new male generation rising up? Do you think that being woke is annoying? Without any shame or judgment here, this is not to provoke, this is to challenge. What do you really think in your mind and your heart about the world right now? You can be honest with yourself. Does it anger you? Does it scare you? Do you wish it could change? Or would you like to go back to the way that it once was? We have to be honest with ourselves if we're ever going to excel and move forward in the kingdom of heaven. It's okay. You're allowed to be honest with yourself about this. Okay, you can open your eyes now. So, why am I asking you this? Well, because in order to, and in Paul's words, fully submit ourselves to Jesus and the church and to each other, we need to fully grasp the power of sacrifice, to fully grasp what surrender feels like, because it has to cost us. We have to get our lenses right. Rachel's old glasses, they weren't cutting it for her. Her vision was blurred. It was causing her eyes to strain. It wasn't until Rach went out in her new glasses that she realised how much she could see again, how much clearer the world around her became. So what happens if you start to view your marriage with such a bright and hopeful lens, always seeing the colour in your partner, never the shadows? What would happen if you started to view your family members, whether they be estranged or in your life every single day, with lenses that are full of kindness and forgiveness? Let's imagine that for a minute. What could that look like if the glasses you put on were really, really forgiving? What would happen, most importantly, if you started viewing God with the lenses of total adoration, of surrender and trust? Would that change the way you enter church? Would that change the way you wake up tomorrow morning? The way you go into work? Did it change the way Paul felt about being chained up in a cell and treated like an animal, worse than? Well, judging by his letters, Paul's lenses were always clear, or at least he would clean them so that they were clear. And I know that there are seasons and times where we feel like we're in a bit of a cell. I really get that. But we can choose what glasses we put on, what lenses we put on. And we're about to step into the practicing the way. And we need to get the right lenses on so we're ready for this new season. So my challenge to you tonight from God, and this is for me too, I'm really challenged in this now. I'm gonna be really mulling this over, if that's the right term. Our challenge is to come into this Lent season with some new lenses on. Where are there old, broken, blurred lenses that you need to just take off and get rid of? Get a new prescription. Because God knows. He knows where you're maybe being a bit more stubborn or looking at something with cracked lenses. Maybe it's the world, maybe it's a neighbour, maybe it's your marriage. We need fresh vision for this new season. Because this practicing the way course, you might not have heard it or seen it or know much about it, but trust me when I tell you, it is so wonderfully freeing, but it has to cost. And that's me and Joe as well. It does mean on a Wednesday night going to Rachel straight from work and being willing to be a bit tired and to sit there and go, no, this costs, that's okay. I want to hear what God's saying. And it will cost you in different ways.